loaded up. And on the top left corner of Grisvan, we have playing for Team Dragon Phoenix Gaming. It is Cure.
And in the bottom right-hand side, it is for Team Liquid, Clem. Also known as Clement de Planche. Clement de Planche.
He's just a cool kid in general. I think he's so sweet. Like you never see him lash out at people or be rude to people or anything like that. And just all around nice guy to be around with. So very cool.
Yeah, he is very cool. He sounds just nice, you know, and everything that he says is just like nice and like you said, like it's heartwarming almost, right? It's like he's so enthusiastic about everything and like he always like uses extra pleases and thank yous and you know, like he's very appreciative. Yeah, he's great.
Definitely well mannered for sure. But on the other hand, in StarCraft, he is completely aggressive, and sometimes he just makes me mauled with those Reapers and Hellions poking at my front.
Oh yeah, his playstyle is his dark side.
That's where he lets it all out. Maybe that's the secret, you know. You just need an escape, and his escape is just dropping people to death and crushing them, crushing their souls. Very brutal stuff. And already seeing an interesting variation here in the builds. Cure going for Reactor first, which is gonna get scouted.
This looks a little bit like my TVT build, Diego. What do you think it's gonna translate into? It's a weird one.
Yeah, usually you do this when you want to make several Reapers and Hellions and try to go for some kind of harass. But maybe now that it gets scouted, you might want to react as Cure here, because Clem knows there's the possibility of being that many Reapers and Hellions, so he can react by getting a really fast Cyclone, for example. I wouldn't be surprised if Clem skips completely Hellions and just goes straight into a Cyclone.
Okay, crazily enough, Cure was keeping 3 on gas for a little bit longer than I would have expected. I was keeping tabs on that, and then just recently he took 1 of each gas. So does that give you any indicator as to what he wants to do? Like, he kept them past dropping the factory.
Yeah, so if you play Reactor first, you need a bit more gas in order to afford the Reapers. Okay. So what I do is you can take 1 SCV off the gas after you start your factory, and then you will have exactly 100 gas for the Reapers when the reactor finishes.
Very nice.
And there's that fast Cyclone that I was talking about. Of course, he can afford to do that because he has no Reapers to be afraid of in the early game. And that's actually going to pay off quite well because Cyclones, once they're out, are actually so powerful in straight-up fights.
Yeah, they're very powerful in the early game. Very few units. You see a unit, you lock onto it, you kill it, and that's it. It's just a really good trade. So Cyclones are one of the best head-to-head units. Let's see if it pays off here, as the Reapers are going to be out of position for Clem, or is Cure out of position for Clem's Reapers is the question.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be that way because Clem already has a Cyclone in his main, and he has a second one coming out, so he's not afraid of dying to anything just yet. But Cure, somehow sensing that maybe something is off, keeping his units on his side of the map, or maybe he was just regrouping with his reinforcements to go with this large number of Reapers and Hellions, which actually can be very scary. Even against 2 Cyclones, if Clem doesn't react quick enough, he could end up losing the fight.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to remove 2 of these units, but there is so many of them. Like I was saying, Cyclones in a 1v1 fight, they're very good, but this is no 1v1. This is a 1v-many or a 2v-many at this point. The Cyclones are kind of in a little bit of trouble. They're great micro from Cure to swing back the Helios that were getting targeted. One Cyclone is going to fall, as Cure is going to dive on top of it. Luckily for Clem, the 2 Marines are going to offer him some shelter, and on the other side, the Reapers tried to make something happen, but with not too much avail.
Yeah, he only kills 1 SCV on the other side, so Cure kind of evening up the SCV count. Of course, your CC is a little bit late with the Reactor first build, so the ball is kind of on your core to do some kind of damage, and he absolutely did. It was very well done by him.
Absolutely did, yeah.
He
If
actually managed to keep a lot of these Reapers and Hellions alive, which is gonna make this push even stronger. He can combine with an auto turret or maybe even Matrix this Cyclone. Wait.
there's like no units for
Clem
Clem.
didn't make a tank.
Yeah,
Did
he's on
he?
the other side.
Oh yeah. This is actually kind of scary because Cure already has a tank in his main and he has a Raven. But on the other hand, I don't know if Clam can hold this.
It looks very, very scary indeed. There's a Cyclone for Cure as well. Luckily for Clem, it locks onto one of the SCVs. Turret versus turret. The turret of Clem is not going to be long for this world. The turret for Cure tanking a little bit more, or, well, tanking the same amount of damage, but from less damage output on the side of Clem. And Clem in a lot of trouble to start this game. Even having to use the lock-on onto the turret. Now he's back with the tank and the medevac, so he will be able to push Cure back eventually, but not before losing 14 SCVs, saving the remaining 4 in that medevac there.
Yeah, I mean, he does manage to clean up this army, so he might have a little bit of an army advantage, but the damage is just so brutal and absolutely not worth it for him. The only saving grace I would say there is for Clem is that his third base is slightly faster than Cure's, so maybe he can try to catch up in mules and an SCV count, but I'm not sure. This looks so hard to come back from as Clem.
Yeah, and yeah, one Raven went down, but there's 3 more already on the side of Cure with, or actually, the Raven didn't even go down, so there's 3 on the side of Cure here, 2 with a decent amount of energy. And it's not like Cure is far behind in terms of like the third CC. I mean, he is technically behind, but it's coming too, right? So yeah, Cure with all the edges here on the back of Clem being aggressive without really knowing what was out on the map, I suppose, right? Like gets caught off guard twice. If those 2 Reapers were at his base for the first push, I think he would have been fine. They didn't really accomplish much on the other side, which is kind of uncharacteristic of Clem as well, as he is one of the best multitasking players in the world. And then and then the follow-up attack also, Diego, it felt like if the tank and the Marines and the medevac are back at home, he would be fine, or at least take a lot less damage, right? So
Yeah, it was just an unfortunate drop in general. It didn't end up doing anything on the other side and just
this one,
hampered
though,
his defense.
I do appreciate this drop, though the tank has actually been moved from Cure, so this drop is looking pretty scary on the side of Clem. Of course, there's the Ravens to disable the tanks. That is the scary part, but turrets are going to try to buy time on the side of Clem as well. Maybe taking down one of those tanks. No, it barely survives, as the turrets of Cure are a little bit too much. Those Marines are going to focus over the Raven, and the tank is unable to be saved as the medevacs attempt at it. 14 workers do go down in this process. But Clem is the one that's going to be losing his army this time around.
Indeed, and he does catch up in the economic advantage again, but he still needs to be careful. I mean, if he throws away too many tanks, he's just opening himself up for a counterattack. So maybe sieging this tank right here was not the best move.
Yeah, at the same time, I mean, I'm with you. I'm on the same page there. I feel like the move for Cure moving forward was to unsiege the tanks in the back and go, but instead he sieges the tanks at the front. And yeah, I mean, if you're a Clem fan, you can breathe for a little bit here, as he's gonna have an opportunity to catch up economically. And I'm very surprised that Cure is not trying to do something right now.
Yeah, I think after repairing all his units, he feels ready. I mean, he still has the air control, and Clem still not starting his engineering base, which frankly is not going to factor into this fight or any fights anytime soon, but still doesn't bode well for him in the future. But now is what he needs to be worried about.
Okay, well, one of the tanks, the only tank at the front, is going to be disabled. 2 more on the way here for Clem, but the SCVs are going to have to be pulled off the line. There's not that many Marines, so it makes a little bit of sense here, but now Marines arrive in the back, and that means those SCVs are going to melt without doing much splash damage. That might be lights out here on game 1 for Clem, as Cure has breached. He is sitting on top of the third, and Clem has to tap out.
Yeah, I mean, I think initially the drop went well. Sure, he traded 3 tanks for a lot of SCVs there. But then he ended up losing another tank when he dropped at the third and sieged it. And I think that just meant he didn't have enough tanks to defend. Maybe if he had an extra tank there, maybe not so further back. Like those 2 tanks weren't even fighting through the push. So just an unfortunate game in general for Clem.
Yeah, I have to imagine one of those tanks was being pulled from the natural or something, and the other one just spawned or something, right? Because they just weren't there, like they weren't sieged at the
Yeah.
front, like you said.
Yeah.
So.
You also have to keep in mind the amount of time that Cure had the worker advantage. I mean, he just had a lot of time to add his barracks and get extra production going and even starting his engineering base much earlier. The killing 14 workers at the start for Cure and not losing anything to the tank drop was just brutal.
Yeah, I mean that one tank for Marines without Slimmer Combat Shield drop was just so underwhelming on the side of Clem. It didn't feel like it was the stage of the game to try something like that, but I guess he had a medevac, wanted to apply some counter pressure, felt like he was already behind, and yeah, Cure not really giving him the time to breathe. And yeah, I agree with you. The drop was really nice from Clem. I think it was great, right? Like the tanks do get disabled, but they do their damage and they spend that Raven energy. And then the follow-up, I also liked it, to be honest. It's just unfortunate, right? Like if that drop in the main buys a little bit more time, then the tank and the Marines at the third stand a chance to do a little bit more damage. And it's just such a quick 1-2 punch that I thought it was pretty cool, but yeah, it ends up being a donation of one tank instead.
Yeah, I wonder what's going to be done differently here on the second game in Royal Blood. It is an extremely short map, so Cure once again has the opportunity to be extra aggressive, but Clem might change things up and maybe go for some kind of aggression himself. We're loading up.
We're loading up. So here we are going to be on Royal Blood. Leading the series is Cure. And yeah, here we are, spawning in the top right hand side of the map. It is for Team Liquid, Clem.
And on the bottom left, up 1-0, fighting for some extra money in this tournament and maybe helping out his teammate Dark. It is Dragon Phoenix Gaming's Cure. I guess it's another extra incentive, right? I mean, helping out his teammate.
Dark is safe though.
Completely?
I think so,
Like,
right? Like
maybe this could help him get first? No, wait. Clem cannot get first.
Yeah. Dark is good, I think. I don't think this changes much for Dark, but I could be wrong.
Oh, this is actually weird. There's a gas first here. Only
That
one
is weird.
gas.
So what does that indicate? Is it a factory first, Marine opening, or?
No, it's usually Reaper expand, and then you can either make the CC in your main, or you can kind of gamble and make it in your natural and get like really fast Hellions, for example. Like you could go one Reaper, Reactor, Hellions, and you could even follow it up later on with like some kind of Hellion Marauder drop. That one's actually not too uncommon in this matchup.
Okay. So I mean, it's just the alternative avenue, I guess. This was used a long time ago, a little bit more gas first instead of double gas. Then people started going double gas instead if they want the fast factory, right? So, yeah, I mean, what is the advantage of doing it this way? Why does it follow up with an expansion? Just because of the lesser investment into the second gas?
Yeah, so if you're on one gas, you just have that surplus of minerals, especially if you went gas first. You're not really producing that many units out of the barracks. And I think the best, at least my favorite advantage of going this build is that you don't really make a bunker, which is what you have to do if you play, for example, barracks gas, because then you have one Reaper, one Marine to defend against two Reapers.
Okay. Reaper's gonna be out in time. As you can see, Clem's Reaper is already way out on the map because he didn't make a gas first, and that actually delays your Reaper, as it, the gas costs minerals. In fact, or the barracks cost minerals, and that is kind of the gating resource for the first Reaper. But here we'll just choose to stay back with the Reaper, of course, and we'll be fine for it. Hellion's now about to start producing, and yeah, starboard as well. So, Hellion drop a possibility, or do you just run them in? What's the plan with these?
Hellion drop is more of a possibility when the starport is proxied, but I don't fault him for just making it in his main right here and maybe going into like even Viking first would be extremely safe. So I wouldn't be surprised if he decided to do
this.
So.
This is cool. Do you think Clem has a read on this? Because he proxied a Liberator. He's proxying a Liberator, and this is a really cool maneuver against this, because if he got the same read that you got from, you know, from whatever information he extracted, then I have to imagine a Liberator's amazing here, right? Because there's not going to be a Cyclone out.
Yeah, and this is gonna actually work out great. There's no Cyclone, no Marine, and no Viking coming out. I mean, you know how long it takes for a Liberator to kill another Liberator? He'll have a very difficult time cleaning up the Sieged Liberator in his main, while the rest of Clem's units kind of wreak havoc in the natural. So I think there's a lot of potential for Clem here.
All right, let's see if he can materialize it. As Ragnarok, just for anyone that's you know, like I don't know. Someone complained about spoilers once, but you're watching the tournament, so I imagine you're following most streams. Ragnarok just took game 1 against Oliveira, very relevant to the outcome of Clem, should he want to stay in the tournament. And yeah, big chase
Actually
here.
not a great start to the fight for Clem. I think he ended up getting a lot of splash damage done on the Reapers, and losing 2 like that means he might have a lot of pressure coming into his CC.
Yeah, this Marine flank is actually excellent. Soaks up so many shots from those Hellions. It kind of diverts their attention and makes it so that the AoE doesn't do as much as Cure would have liked. And this is a great position now for Clem, who withholds the attack. For a second there, I thought he's just trying to... I was like, why is he holding on the low ground? He was just trying to hold to make sure that his CC finished. But he gets a lot more than that, right? Like those 2 Marines on the flank, so very cool.
Yeah, that was really impressive. Very well done by him, as he gets a medevac afterwards. Maybe to try and pressure a little bit in the front, use the extra power of the added healing, and maybe pick up the locked on unit versus the Cyclone. But Cure does spot this starport while it's making the Raven, so he knows what's up. I mean, he already knew that the starport was proxy just by the timing of the Liberator. But now it's good to know where it was.
Turret gonna be dropped in Clem's face there. Quick reaction to save the Cyclone, and then the consequent units that were left over otherwise. Still has to be pretty careful. Lock-on available now on the Cyclone of Clem, but he's a 1 shot away, more or less, from a Cyclone lock-on from dying. So he has to be a little bit careful. And Clem is actually somehow still behind in workers, Diego. Where did this come from? Like, what happened here?
Well, Clem had to do a lot of damage with this build, right? His second command center was extremely late, like at least a couple of minutes behind Cure's. So the ball was on his court to do damage, and 6 SCVs is really not that much damage. But you also have to remember that there was a lot of mining time denied from the main, and a lot of gas that Cure wasn't mining for a long time.
I'm not seeing it translated into the supply though. Like, yeah, like I just touched on the worker count, and that's definitely not there. But the rest of the supply also, I mean, it doesn't seem there. It seems like the army is tight. So what is it? Is it in production? Where is disadvantages that Clem found early?
I think he just kind of evened out his economic disadvantage from earlier, right? I mean, like I said, his second base was actually 2 minutes later. So that means that the entire time that he was prepping up the attack, Hero was mining a lot more. So it just felt like these 2 things kind of evened themselves out, instead of Clem actually getting an advantage from that.
Okay. Hellion is going to fall there to the Reaper lock-on. 3 Ravens again on the side of Cure. Clem only currently working with the 2. So energy-wise, I'm not sure where they stand on those fronts, or how relevant that's going to be. I have to imagine it's the most important pieces here in this early to mid-game. Not looking healthy.
Indeed. Nothing too crazy just yet. One thing that you have to note is that Clem actually hasn't even started his stim pack yet, and it's not in the works anytime soon. I mean, these barracks are not even done yet. So he might opt to go into a double tech lab just so he can get both his combat shields and stim pack at the same time.
Alright, let's see if that's going to be the choice. First tech lab goes down. The second one, a little bit of hesitance there. Clem is moving out of the map, but Cure is well aware as he scanned the tail end of the move out there as the tanks were unsieging. Now Cure denying or delaying this base with a single Hellion. It could have maybe repositioned to try and hit both Marines as it does towards the tail end, but it's already taken too much damage. Still, it's going to be a little bit of a pseudo base right here as both players encroach onto the third. Clem is quick to fly away, but not to send away his SCVs. So he's actually taking more losses here on those fronts. The CC for Cure will fall, which is nice for Clem. And Clem has to evacuate all the way into his main, but there's a Liberator in his main. So there's no more mining here for Clem. Production is gonna be stalled terribly here. And now Clem also walking into Cure, but there's already a tank. Good job from the Raven of Clem, then, but it's gonna be sieged by the Vikings of Cure. Siege of Clem's own is gonna happen at the ramp of Cure, and on the other side, I mean, 56 SCVs and 52 SCVs have gone down, but the supply greatly favoring Cure in terms of army. So I have to imagine he's gonna be able to perhaps turn around and eliminate Clem from the tournament, as UGG is called.